have it. I got it. And I am so excited. It's the witness list. And look, I know we're in crime and justice, right? So you and I, we get all wound up about witnesses, but this one's a little different. This is a congressional hearing, and a witness list doesn't usually get me all excited, but these three, they do, because they're super smart, really highly respected, well-placed military whistleblowers who all say they've seen UFOs. Like, not just seen, they've seen lots of information about UFOs and retrieving crashed UFOs and crashed UFO pilots. So you can imagine when I got my hands on the witness list, I'm like, pop the popcorn. The hearings are coming next week. I can't wait. So, all right, let me just start with the names. David Grush. I like that one because exclusively on News Nation, he told us all about the alien retrieval program, or the crash retrieval program, that Congress is being, kept out of. That the Pentagon has it, and no one in government's allowed to know about it. And then Ryan Graves, he's a former Navy pilot whose naval squadron captured the Gimbal and Go Fast UFOs. That was captured on infrared back in 2015. Those are famous, famous images. David Fravor, he is retired Navy commander, famously witnessed that Tic Tac. Do you remember that 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac UFO video that even 60 Minutes covered it? And he said, I can't explain it, but it ain't anything that I've ever seen, nor is it technology that we could ever figure out. And now Representative Tim Burchett, Republican from Tennessee, says the federal government and even NASA are blocking investigations at every opportunity. And next week, he says these hearings mean, quote, we are done with cover-ups. Here's what he said. Take a look.
Last year, the House Intelligence Committee held a hearing on UAPs. They brought in some Pentagon bureaucrats who only had two answers to the questions they were asked. I don't know, or that's classified. This hearing is going to be different. We're going to have witnesses who can speak frankly to the public about their experiences. They do exist or they don't exist. They keep telling us they don't exist, but they block every opportunity for us to get a hold of the information to prove that they do exist. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, dadgummit, whatever the truth may be.
Oh my goodness, did he curse? That's serious. I want to bring in Ben Hansen. He's the host of Discovery Plus's UFO Witness. He's been following the story closely. He knows way more than I do about all of this. So should I be as excited as I am, Ben, about these three witnesses? I mean, look, you don't get credentials higher than these guys as whistleblowers who are going to have to testify under oath and answer, pointed questions that people have not answered up until now.
I'm as excited as you are. I think they're playing this just right. I'm totally Team Burchett. When he came out, you can see the passion. The rest of that press conference, he not only talks about those witnesses, but he talks about their efforts, gives you a little behind the scenes when they were receiving phone calls. One of the other reps, I believe it was Gates, go down to Eglin Air Force Base because these pilots were seeing things and having encounters. And so when they went there, they were stonewalled by a general who basically said, yeah, we brought you here, but we're not telling you anything. Get out. So they're fuming. They're fuming. You can see that passion. And the three witnesses are very solid, like you said. I think we're kind of giving a primer to the rest of the public right now and bring them up to speed with these solid witnesses.
Okay, witnesses, that's one thing. Are we going to see evidence? Like, there's a lot, right? Even Burchett said he's seen evidence of things that could turn us into charcoal. And that was just like, excuse me, baking powder? So are we going to be able to be privy to some of the things that, high-level whistleblowers have seen, Congress might end up seeing? Will the public see this stuff?
I don't think at this point we're going to see much. For those who are really into this, I am always optimistic, but I'm never disappointed when they give us something. I think this is going to be kind of a review on the record in front of this committee to tell people that, yes, we have evidence. They probably are not going to be able to share the actual direct evidence of a crash retrieval program. Most of us have heard the stories from Fravor and Graves, but it's putting it on the record in front of this Congress that this really happened. And Burchett did say they might have some visuals, but they're not sure at this point. So don't let that, be the smoking gun and the disappointment, because that is coming. We have full, I guess you could say, optimism that other committees are planning hearings. And I've talked to insiders who have said videos exist where we have F-22s and F-15s doing loops, the craft doing loops around them. And it makes the Tic Tac video look like child's play.
Well, I can't wait for Wednesday, and I think you and I both will be, one after the other with the popcorn, waiting to see what we see and hear what we hear. You'll have to come back next week. Thanks, Ben.
If there's one issue that can bring Democrats and Republicans together, it's UFOs.
Why is the military and the government not just being honest with us? Why are they overclassifying it? Why aren't they being transparent?
They keep telling us they don't exist, but they block every opportunity for us to get a hold of the information to prove that they do exist. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, dadgummit, whatever the truth may be. We're done with the cover-up.
Dadgummit. The House Oversight Committee announcing a hearing with actual eyewitnesses for what the government calls UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. And the Biden administration this week admitting that these things are having an actual impact on our military.
Some of these phenomena, we know, have already had an impact on our training ranges for, when pilots are out trying to do training in the air and they see these things, they're not sure what they are, and it can have an impact on their ability to perfect their skills. There's something our pilots are seeing.
That's reassuring. Joining me now is Jeremy Corbell, investigative journalist and co-host of Weaponized. It's a podcast that explores the unexplained. Jeremy, what do we know about some things that pilots are seeing that I guess are interfering even with training missions?
Well, our government knows a lot about them, but the public does not. And the issue is really, it doesn't matter where these machines are from. We know they outpace, outmaneuver, and overperform any of our weaponry. We know they're not China. We know they're not Russia. We know they're not ours. So what we're looking to do is avoid strategic surprise. It doesn't matter where UFOs are from. What matters is we don't have a 360 view of what's going on in our airspace for the safety of our pilots, but also for the safety of America. So that's what this hearing is about, this unprecedented hearing, unlike anything that has ever come before.
Well, a lot of the skeptics are saying, well, this is new technology that's coming from China or Russia. And Congressman Burchett had a really good retort to that claim.
If Russia owned it, they wouldn't be battling in Ukraine. It'd be over. China, they would control us. Even they pretty much do now, but even more so. It's either something that's extraterrestrial or something that we have in our skunk works and listen to the pilots. It defies all of our laws of physics. The human body would not be able to withstand the pressure from this thing. It's beyond belief.
Jeremy, I just want to hear more and more and more on this. I mean,
yeah, look, all
wild.
of America, the whole world is fascinated by this because guess what? UFOs have been a part of the human experience since before there was even a Pentagon or a Department of Defense. So this idea that it's just some technology built by another unknown nation, it doesn't hold water. So the question is, who's operating this craft? What's the intent? How do they have these performance capabilities? It's really important to understand this is not a new topic. You go all the way back to presidencies way back in the day, and people ran on tickets to tell the truth about UFOs. So it's about time, and we're getting closer and closer with every day. These hearings are historic. Firsthand, direct eyewitnesses, people that have actually engaged UFOs in combat situations, even training. So that's what we're going to see come next week.
Jeremy, can you explain for us, to the extent that you know this, how are these operating from what they can understand that defy the laws of physics to put the pressure on a regular human pilot that would be unsustainable by the human body? Explain that.
Right. So that's a huge story, but essentially it has to do with the propulsion systems themselves. What I can tell you is what we're observing, not how it works. That's what we need to find out. What we're observing are objects that can go what they call transmedium, from space to air to sea, without any inertial effect. So they're able to go at right angle turns at thousands of miles an hour. This is something that we have radar footage, satellite footage of. The public deserves to know this exists. And then the question becomes, whose are they?
Well, doesn't it seem that we've been hearing about the pieces of things that seem like aircraft that have been recovered and are being examined somewhere, but we don't know? We think it's like the night of the museum. Like there's all these things that are talking to each other in the middle of the night. I know there's a movie about that. But where are these items? I'm not going to say spacecraft, but where are these vehicle pieces?
Senator Harry Reid pointed the finger at Lockheed, but there are a number of these holding facilities. And I hope we hear more about that when it comes to the hearings, because those places have been told to Arrow and other organizations.
All right, Jeremy, great to see you tonight. We cannot wait for this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for spearheading this effort. I'll start out by saying that I'm a skeptic on a lot of stuff. I come from a computer science background and finance background, so I tend to err on the side of things that I can see and touch, and I don't give into conspiracies. But too often the federal government works outside of the public eye, and in conspiracies and rumors tend to flourish in places where the federal government is silent or not transparent. The American people deserve to know what their tax dollars are funding and what the government knows. That's just plain and simple. The other thing I think is important is that our servicemen and women who are risking their lives for this country and are encountering these devices, we owe it to them to find out what is in the air that might potentially harm their lives. What's disturbing is when you hear about the accounts of 14 near misses in air. Next week's hearing is about transparency. Like many Americans, I read David Grush's story when it first came out and watched the TV interviews. I was struck by the sheer amount of detail. So I was able to contact him and hear directly from him in a lengthy phone call interview. And after speaking with him, I was convinced that the American people deserve to hear from him directly. That's why I asked Chairman Comer to hold this hearing. And I'm grateful that the chairman has decided to hold a hearing so that we can ask questions and get the answers that the American people deserve. It is time for transparency. And I'll say one more thing. It's the responsibility of members on oversight to do. This is our job. This is exactly what our responsibility is. So I'd like to thank Tim and my other colleagues for their leadership in putting this together. And I want to thank the chairman for his support.
All right, at some point, the question of UFOs will come down to a very simple demand. Show us the aliens. After months of whistleblowers and conjecture, Republicans in the House Oversight Committee say they will do as much next week. Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee has been leading this effort for years now and is with us again. All right, Congressman, I'm from Missouri. You're from Tennessee. Missouri is the show me state, okay? When do we get to see the aliens?
Well, Tennessee is a volunteer state, and we've got 3 incredible people that volunteer to serve their country that are going to go through a lot of this. They'll be able to ask questions. It's going to be wide open, and it's bipartisan. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an American issue. And that government, we need to get to the bottom of it. I just want some transparency. You know, here's the thing. I had a bill that basically I have tried to introduce a bill, the FAA Reauthorization Act, that basically just said it would require the FAA to report UAP, I hate that term, but it's UFO sightings by commercial pilots to Congress. And guess what? The intelligence community shut it down. They would not even allow it to be heard. And you got to ask yourself, are they covering up? What are they covering up if there aren't any UFOs? And what are they covering up?
Look, anytime you're asking questions and people are trying to stonewall you, as you have done, or covering things up, you know you're onto something, right? I mean, it's human nature. I greatly appreciate that you are pointing out how stupid UAP is, because it feels like even changing the name of it is trying to sort of obscure a little bit of what it is, and all of a sudden you look at, wait, are we talking about the UAEs or what are we talking about? But I digress. More importantly, to think about here, the U.S. government couldn't keep Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky secret. The U.S. government has a terrible track record of keeping secrets. WikiLeaks, Snowden, on and on and on and on.
When it's around money or power, they don't. Because look at the Kennedy assassination, over 50 years, and they won't release that. Everybody's dead in that thing. I've gone and looked at files. Oh, you're going to see these files, Burchett. I go down the skiff. Looks like a piece of Swiss cheese. It's just all blacked out and a few things in there. It's bogus. The whole thing is bogus. This is about power. It's about control. We know that this has happened. We've got people that first eyewitnesses, and all they're doing is damaging their careers by coming forward. They're not getting anything out of this.
No, it's
So,
fair enough.
go ahead.
The last whistleblower we had on, it was always, I heard it from a friend. A guy I know I worked on this project with told me. No one in 50 years has smuggled out a piece of one of these crafts. Nobody has taken a picture and said, hey, it's in the hangar over there. No one's taken a video of any of the black helicopters that pick up any of these crashed UFOs. I guess, do you understand people, and as a journalist, it's my job, who are a little bit skeptical and saying at some point, okay.
Absolutely. And now with AI, I wouldn't trust anything I see out there, except I've seen the videos. I mean, and
you trust
and why
it.
are they? I do. I mean, I trust a decorated war veteran who tells me that, in fact, hell yes, I saw it, and I've had retribution. Now these pilots tell me they'll be pulled off the flight line, and then they'll be debriefed, as they call it, which is BS. Military intelligence interrogates them for 8 hours. They get a blemish on their record. And pilots tell me they destroy the evidence, the video evidence, because if they bring it back, they're pulled off the flight line. They get the blemish. They get the retribution from their colleagues. And, it's just, I mean, these are decorated veterans. This is not some guy flying this isn't the guy out here flying the weather report out here. These are guys flying $50 million aircraft.
That's a good point. Fair enough.
And why is the Pentagon, why did NASA back out of our hearing? Why did the Pentagon put pressure on one of our witnesses that they can't go by? And why don't you all start looking at financial disclosures of people that are on these committees that are blocking this, and look at some of the names on there, brother. Both parties.
We'll do it.
This is correct, and we're over the target.
I got to run. I'm booking you next week to talk about this. All right, we're going to have some popcorn. We're going to watch the hearing. I got to run.
Get me on, brother. Go get him. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tell your mama go Vols.
I love it.
Let's bring in the other side. Mick West, science writer, author of the book Escaping the Rabbit Hole. It's good to see you, Mick.
Good to see you again, Chris.
We've heard what these guys have to say. So what do you need to advance?
We need something new. We need some new evidence. And this witness list that we just got today is very, very disappointing. We've got David Grush, who we've already heard from via his interview. And we have two pilots, only one of whom has actually seen a UFO with his naked eyes. The other one has only seen it on sensors. And they have been telling the exact same story for a very, very long time. So we're not going to hear anything new from those people. We need to get some actionable evidence. We need to get we need someone to start naming names. We need to have someone pointing out where things actually are. We need someone actually directing Congress to what should they do to actually validate their stories.
What do you make of a plan like a Schumer's bill that, hey, any private industries that collect any of these things or anybody else, you've got to tell us about them in a Senate committee. We're going to set up a special committee for that. Is that the answer?
I think it's probably good for Congress to know what private industry is doing if something like that was actually happening. There isn't really any very good evidence that that type of thing is happening. We're basing it all basically on these stories from people like David Grush and other people. These are the same stories that have been knocking around the UFO
you think that Chuck Schumer
culture for a long
is
time.
Designing legislation based off an interview he saw on News Nation, that he didn't make any phone calls to see if there's anything legitimate to these categories of concern?
No, I think it's something that's been going on for quite a while. In fact, he mentioned that he was basically carrying on the legacy of Harry Reid, and Harry Reid is the one who really got this whole ball rolling when he started the ORSAP and the ATIP programs back in the 90s, based on information that was gleaned from this place called Skinwalker Ranch, which is a very interesting story. But it isn't actually new what's happening here. It's just something that's kind of coming to a head.
And what do you think the best case scenario is?
The best case scenario is that we figure out what's going on. Why does David Grush believe what he believes? And it seems like he genuinely believes this, but I think he's only believing it because other people have told him things and he's trusting these other people. We need to get to those other people. Who are the people who are telling him things? What did they tell him? Where are the alien bodies? Where are the alien craft? We heard from people that there's one alien craft that's so big they had to build a building over it. And the journalist who interviewed David Grush, Ross Culthart, claims he knows exactly where it is. So why don't you get him in front of Congress and ask him where this giant alien craft is, or ask Dave Grush where it is?
It is always tricky for me when somebody says they know something, but they won't tell you. I like employing your skepticism very often. You help debunk things, and that's as important as anything else in terms of obtaining an aspect of the truth. But do you have any doubt that there are things that are known about by the U.S. government, about things that have flown around within American airspace that they're not telling Americans?
Yeah, quite likely, yes. We know that, for example, China and Russia try to test our airspace all the time, and we don't want to let them know what we know about what's going on. There may be some advanced technology Chinese drones that are in the airspace, but there isn't really even any very good evidence that there's anything particularly amazing going on. You look at all these videos that get released, they end up not showing anything. A lot of the videos Jeremy Corbell released, like this 29 palms flying triangle that lots and lots of Marines saw, turned out to just be some flares. The green triangle video you're showing on screen right now, that turned out to be mostly stars and one aircraft that was either a drone or a plane. Nothing at all particularly interesting. So we really haven't even got a baseline of good evidence that there's something amazing going on.
But I would be good with that. I would be good with them coming on and saying what you just said. Obviously not the same thing. We already know it. But like, all right, give me another one. And they give it, well, what about this? All right, here's what we know about that. It's not what you think it is, and here's why. Oh, yeah, and what about this story about the building around the plane because it was so big? Yeah, that's never happened. I think even that would be helpful, because when you don't tell people, you weaponize the unknown, and that's what we keep seeing. So
unidentified flying objects have been an obsession for decades, spawning speculation and wild conspiracy theories. But are any of these mysterious UFO sightings proof of life beyond Earth? Tonight, after generations of investigation and theories, the government is pulling back the curtain, trying to separate fact from fiction. And in our prime focus, we have an exclusive first look inside the Pentagon's new effort to find answers, and the first TV interview with the man tasked with running it all. Our Devin Dwyer reports.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly.
After decades of mysterious sightings, the Pentagon's top UFO investigator speaking exclusively to ABC News.
What surprised you most since you took over?
There are a number of things that surprised me.
The government probe covering hundreds of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, like this declassified U.S. Navy video.
Oh my gosh, dude.
The unusual object flying quickly through restricted airspace off the East Coast in 2015.
Look at it fly.
Some phenomena shocking everyday Americans too.
I swear to God, this is not a joke.
A Las Vegas family last month called 911, adamant extraterrestrial creatures had landed in their backyard.
They're like 9 foot, 10 foot tall. They look like aliens to us.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles.
One whistleblower is so convinced, he says the government has pieces of alien spacecraft under lock and key.
Yeah, they're sophisticatedly engineered, certainly not by humans.
And Hollywood is feeding the fascination.
Has arrived.
Now that's a proper introduction.
So do aliens exist? And are those unidentified aerial phenomena evidence they visited Earth? To separate fact from fiction, we went to the man leading a search for answers from inside the Pentagon.
I'm a long-term intelligence officer, scientist, and military officer.
Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, in his first television interview after a year on the job, told us everything is on the table.
What keeps you up at night?
Technical surprise. And that could be adversary technical surprise or extraterrestrial technical surprise.
Kirkpatrick leads the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, created by Congress last year to detect, identify, and attribute mysterious objects of interest in the air, in outer space, and even underwater.
It's a big job.
Yes.
The top priorities, he says, are mitigating threats to the safety of military personnel and dispelling myths.
What's the most common misconception people have of UAPs or of the work you're doing?
That they're all the same thing and they're all extraterrestrial. And neither of those are true.
His office is investigating more than 800 cases of potential UAPs reported by military pilots and service members. Things like this video from 2019, Navy sailors recording glowing triangles above them, now believed to be ordinary drones distorted by night vision goggles. Many reports involve unusual metallic spheres seen floating in the sky, but most have been later identified as weather or spy balloons.
We have to go through the rigor of taking each one, matching it against our known objects and known catalogs, and then reviewing that, peer reviewing that, making sure that everybody's in agreement.
But there's not an explanation for everything, most notably the so-called Tic Tac incident off the California coast in 2004.
I can tell you, I think it was not from this world.
David Fravor is a retired Navy F-18 pilot who spotted the object seeming to move at impossible speeds. He spoke with ABC News in 2017.
We get a call from USS Princeton. He gives us a bearing range and altitude report. He's calling a contact force that they want us to investigate. So as we start driving out there, I said, what are we looking for? And he said, we don't know. He said, we've seen these objects, and they hang out at 20,000, then they go straight back up above 80,000 and disappear. There's 2 people in each jet, so 4 heads, 8 eyeballs, and we start looking around. And right about that time, I was like, dude, do you see that? I go, what is that? So we're looking down, and there's a disturbance in the water. Right next to it was this little white object that looks like a Tic Tac, and it's just above the surface of the water, and it's moving around left, right, forward, back, just random, no controlled thing. There is no rotor wash, there is no jet wash. I say, hey, I'm gonna go down and check it out. We start coming down, so now we're in a clockwise flow, going from 12 to 3, and it starts going from 6 to 9. And it's coming up, and we're going down. We start to cut across, it rapidly accelerates, climbs past our altitude, and disappears. That's the last we saw of it.
What's your best guess of what happened there?
It's really hard to guess on this, and I don't like to guess.
So have you hit a dead end with this one then?
The more things that I see that resemble a Tic Tac, then I can get more and more information about what that is.
Kirkpatrick says between 95 and 98% of cases reviewed by his office are readily explainable. Large birds, balloons, debris, or drones, but a small number remain a mystery.
So that 2 to 5%, which are anomalous incidents, which you're still looking into, could potentially be extraterrestrial activity?
So we are going to follow our data and our investigations wherever it goes, right? So I have a full range of hypotheses.
So you can't rule it out?
I can't rule it out, but I don't have any evidence that says that yet.
Most Americans believe intelligent life exists beyond Earth, and a majority say UAPs under investigation are likely proof of contact. Some former Pentagon insiders claim the government has more evidence than it's publicly acknowledged. Kirkpatrick says he's seen nothing to back up those claims.
You can say categorically you've seen no convincing, confirmable evidence of intact spacecraft kept by the U.S. government?
No. I have seen nothing that leads me to that conclusion.
Is it possible there is some secret program that you're just not aware of?
I don't think so. I have access to anything and everything I need.
Why do you think these whistleblowers are coming forward?
Well, one, I think the recent law, which extended whistleblower protections to them and named AARO as the authorized disclosure authority, opens the door for them to come and tell us exactly what they think they saw or know about.
You believe them?
I believe that they believe what they're telling me, and my job is it's not a question of belief, right? It's a question of what can I go research.
Investigating UAPs has bipartisan support on Capitol Hill.
My priority is that we understand the full range of threats posed by our adversaries in all domains.
Multiple congressional committees have held hearings.
There is something there measurable by multiple instruments, and yet it seems to move in directions that are inconsistent with what we know of physics or science more broadly.
And even the White House now weighing in.
We're not saying what they are or what they're not. We're saying that there's something our pilots are seeing. We're saying it has had an effect on some of our training operations, and so we want to get to the bottom of it.
Top Democrats and Republicans have called for greater transparency, proposing legislation this month that would force the government to publicly release records on UAPs within 25 years of when they were created.
So a lot of these allegations crop up again and again over history.
Do you think extraterrestrial life is out there?
I think it's statistically unrealistic to think it isn't. I mean, given the vastness of the universe.
Are you going to find it on your watch?
Well, wouldn't that be fun? I mean, that would be probably the best outcome of this job.
Ross, David Grush has spoken publicly only once in your interview for News Nation. He will now tell his story under oath to Congress. How do you think he'll hold up under questioning?
He's really looking forward to it, Elizabeth. This is a unique opportunity for an intelligence officer who's operated at a very high level inside the U.S. military and intelligence establishment to reveal for the first time what he actually knows. I do caution, though, people need to be aware that Mr. Grush is still under the obligations of his security oath, and the Pentagon and the intelligence community know that, so he can't say anything that breaches national security. And that's a frustration for him. I'm sure he'd like to say a lot more than he's allowed to reveal.
Right. Well, his story, even what he can say and has said thus far here on this network, is incredible. But it's all based on secondhand information. He didn't actually see this non-human aircraft himself. He says he was told about it. Isn't that a problem?
I don't think it is, no. I mean, I think this hearing that we're going to see next week is the beginning of multiple hearings. I think you're going to see a slow rollout of witnesses, including first-hand witnesses who are prepared to testify. This is getting a momentum now. What I think is the key issue is that it's quite clear that there has been obstruction. Mr. Grush himself has made allegations of reprisals and harassment for his decision to come forward, and that's still the subject of investigations by the Inspector General of the intelligence community. But now, just in the last 24 hours, we've got allegations from 4 representatives, including Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, that there's been deliberate obstruction to stop representatives of a congressional oversight committee from being allowed to talk to Air Force pilots at Eglin Air Force Base. And I think this is really important, Elizabeth. This is a congressional oversight committee doing its lawful job, trying to hold the military and the intelligence community to account. And there is an allegation from Mr. Burchett and from Representative Luna that in their efforts to talk to pilots at Eglin Air Force Base, the commanding brigadier general blocked pilots from being interviewed by Congress's Oversight Committee.
Yeah.
And you really have to wonder what's going on here.
Absolutely. And that doves exactly with one of the other witnesses who will appear, Ryan Graves. He's appeared on this show several times and has talked about the fact that many of the pilots are actively and vociferously discouraged from reporting what they are seeing up there. He says it was almost a nightly event that they would be out on patrol, out doing maneuvers, and they would see something that they didn't recognize and had to file a report on that. But they were told to bury these reports.
That's true. And this is why I think there's the focus in this first committee hearing on the pilots, on the military representatives, because I think it's very important here to make the observation that in the preliminary reports that came into Congress, there was kind of ambiguousness about whether or not there was any issue of national security or flight safety threat. And the various representatives from the intelligence community who gave evidence in the very first UAP hearings were a bit one way about it. Mm-hmm. Now we've got pilots on the record basically saying they're concerned about multiple near misses. I think it's about 12 or 14 near misses that have taken place on training ranges. And I think that's very important. And I think what Ryan Graves and David Fravor are courageously doing is sticking their heads up above the parapet to signal to other pilots and other military witnesses that it's okay to come forward, that Congress wants your evidence, and despite efforts by people in the intelligence and defense community to obstruct this, and I think that's outrageous. These officers should be facing a court-martial investigation for their attempt to hinder a congressional inquiry. It's clear that what they're trying to do in the committee is signal to military witnesses that it's okay for them to come forward.
Right.
The other thing that's just happened, by the way, is Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of the Pentagon's UFO investigation office, has also done an interview with another network where he's basically admitted for the first time that they've interviewed almost 30 individuals who've come in to provide testimony. And while he's still running the line that none of this has led to any verifiable information that substantiates that the US government has these ships or a reverse engineering program, he's admitted that a number of these whistleblowers believe and have stated, and quote, "We believe them now," he says, that they have seen something, and we are investigating.